Alright, Victor, today we're going to talk about Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Now this is a really good book, if you ask me. Yeah, that's right, smile at me just so.
I agree wholeheartedly, Martin. Now let me ask you this question. What did you think of the unique styles used with the hero and villain characters of Will Graham and Francis Dollarhide, respectively?
Well, Victor, one of the most interesting elements of Red Dragon by Thomas Harris was the author, Thomas Harris's use of split narrative. Now, by this I mean, he took two different sort of storytelling approaches to both the novel's main counterpoints. Francis Dollarhide.
What are you saying?
What am I saying? I'm talking about.
It sounds like garbage.
It doesn't sound like garbage. This is true.
Two main counterpoints.
The two, okay. No, counterpoints. These are the two counter characters.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, so Victor, you know how throughout the book, Will Graham is given this sort of sense of dread. He's really, he isolates himself from others and from himself pretty much so that he can transform into the mind of the killer. And this is how he catches his killers. You understand that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Now, on the other hand, we have Francis Dollarhide, who's kind of like the core point of that. His narrative style is very concise. The sentences are short and delivered swiftly, very quickly. Kind of like Ernest Hemingway.
Now, Hannibal Lecter is interesting as sort of a bridge between Will Graham and Francis Dollarhide. You see, Hannibal is interesting in the fact that he is very straightforward and simple as a killer, but he likes to pretend there is more behind his motives. He's a bit pretentious, if you will.
I agree, Victor. But hey, don't you think that by pretentious you mean that Hannibal Lecter, the madman that he is, the diabolical genius that he is actually sowing the seeds of love? What am I talking about? The seeds of love? The seeds of madness in his victims? Oh, hey, you haven't been destroyed. Hey!
Well, Martin, I think it's evident that Hannibal Lecter, throughout the many books that Thomas Harris has wrote, serves one purpose, and that is to mess around, to use a colloquial term, mess around with the fellow characters that inhabit the books that he's featured in. What makes Hannibal interesting is that he really seems to have no allegiance to anyone. He is he's a wild card. He's chaotic, and really he just wants to screw everything up. And if it means using pretentious terms or ideas or suggesting ridiculous things to his victims, in a sense, he's because he can't kill anymore. He's really trying to sow the seeds of insanity in his victims. I hate my life. Turn it off, Mark!
So then, Victor, maybe this constant trend of Hannibal Lecter being the main character, almost every one of these books by Thomas Harris, is the center of the universe for the Hannibal Lecter world. I can't say that, that's stupid.
It just sounds retarded.
Well, Victor, that's a very interesting addition of Hannibal Lecter. But now I'd like to talk about my favorite scene in the entire book, the one that struck the strongest emotional chord with me. My personal favorite is the recounting of Francis Dollarhide as a child. When he was much younger, he's found frolicking with a little girl playing "You Show Me Mine and I'll Show You Yours." I just fucked that up. You show me mine? I always say that. Just do it live. Fuck it. Well, Victor, one of my favorite parts of the book, speaking of the whole psychotic killer thing we have going on, is probably the scene where we're being told Francis Dollarhide's friend. Stop it! I'm gonna do it myself.
Martin, if you were a good...
Yeah, 5 months or something. Well, Well, Richard, that's a very interesting point that you're...
You can't do it, see? I'll just stop.
I'm going to do it.
stop.
I'm going to do it. Well, Victor, that's very interesting, and we should talk about the character of the Lecter. However, from now on, I'd like to go on about one of my favorite parts of the book. And as speaking about it, I'd like to hear about yours. Now, there's a point in the book where we meet Francis Dollarhide as a very young child. He's portrayed as having a dismal past. He's beaten, abused, so sexually, even mentally. And there's a point where he's caught with another girl doing a very, very disgusting act, at least from the perspective of his wretched grandmother. Now, he's sitting in his room, on his bed, and his grandmother she says to him, "Francis, go get the scissors. I'll be up there in a moment." And he sits on his bed and he's waiting for her. And he doesn't know what's going to happen. But he's sitting there waiting for something to happen. And it never comes. He's just sort of left there alone. He's left alone on that bed with those scissors like he is all of his life. A completely isolated character. And in that sense, we're sort of told immediately what kind of person he's going to be throughout the rest of the book and for the rest of his life. Now that was my favorite part of the book. What about yours?